On July 26, 2009, a mother and her 5 children were driving a minivan along the Taconic State Parkway in New York. What began as a normal family outing ended shortly thereafter in one of the worst traffic disasters in the state's history. 8 people die, including 4 children. But it quickly becomes clear that this was no ordinary accident. The driver, Diane Schuler, had previously driven nearly 3 kilometers in the wrong direction as a wrong-way driver. What drives a seemingly loving mother to take such a risk? And what really happened in the final hours before the crash? Diane Hance was born on November 13, 1972, in New York. She grew up with 3 brothers in a Catholic family in Floral Park, Nassau County. Her childhood was uneventful at first, until a devastating blow struck. Without warning, her mother left the family. Diane had to grow up fast, taking on responsibility and caring for her brothers. As an adult, Diane worked successfully as an accountant at Cablevision. She was organized, athletic, and dedicated. In her free time, she taught at a Sunday school. Then she met Daniel Schuler. The two fell in love quickly and got married. Diane took his last name and gave birth to 2 children over the next few years. First, a son named Brian, then a daughter named Erin. Acquaintances and friends describe Diane as a strong woman who has everything under control. They say she is loving, caring, and organized, and that nothing is more important to her than her family. She also has a close bond with her brother Warren's family, and they spend a lot of time together. Diane often picks up her nieces and takes them on outings. On the weekend of July 25, 2009, the Schulers set off for Hunter Lake Campground together with Warren's daughters. The family camps, goes boating, and enjoys their time together. On Sunday morning, July 26th, they prepare for the return trip. Daniel Schuler gets up early, loads the boat, packs everything into the car, and says goodbye to Diane. Since not everyone fits in one car, they drive separately. Diane takes the Ford minivan with the 5 children, while Daniel takes the luggage. Shortly before 9:30 a.m., the campground manager sees Diane waving goodbye. She later testifies that the children were cheerful and that Diane also seemed carefree. Around 10 a.m., Diane stops with the children at a McDonald's in Liberty, New York. The employees later recall a calm, friendly woman who seemed completely sober and normal. At 10:46 a.m., Diane stops at a gas station. Surveillance camera footage shows her entering the store, looking around, and speaking with an employee. She doesn't buy anything. Some sources later state that she wanted to buy over-the-counter painkillers, but they were out of stock. At 11:30 a.m., Diane calls her sister-in-law Jackie, the mother of her 3 nieces. She mentions heavy traffic, but says everything is fine. Jackie hears the children in the background and isn't worried. She has no idea that she will never see her children again. Around noon, several drivers notice a conspicuous vehicle on Interstate 87. They report a red Mini driving erratically and changing lanes abruptly. It is Diane's car. 10 minutes later, Diane passes a toll booth. Immediately afterward, her behavior draws attention again. A couple driving behind her later describes how Diane tailgates, honks, and obviously cuts them off, even though traffic is backed up. Shortly after, she suddenly pulls into a rest area. The couple intends to confront her about her dangerous behavior, but before they get out, Diane leans out of the car and vomits. Afterward, she drives off immediately. At 1 p.m., Diane calls her brother Warren. Diane mistakenly addresses him as Danny, her husband's name. She seems confused. Warren tells her to pull over to the right or take an exit. The call suddenly cuts off. A minute later, the cell phone rings again. This time, it's 8-year-old Emma, Warren's oldest daughter. She says something is wrong with Aunt Diane. Emma mentions the town of Terrytown. Jackie and Warren want to speak with Diane, and Emma hands the phone over. Jackie tells Diane to get off the highway immediately. Warren is on his way to pick her up. A short time later, Diane's cell phone is found by the roadside, undamaged on a bridge guardrail. There is much speculation later about what this might mean. Because the phone is undamaged, it is suspected that Diane placed it there intentionally and did not throw it out the window. At 1:30 p.m., 2 witnesses report a vehicle taking the wrong on-ramp at high speed. From that moment on, Diane is driving the wrong way on the Taconic Parkway. In the next few minutes, the police receive several emergency calls. Drivers report the red minivan coming toward them at high speed in the passing lane. Several people report that the vehicle shows no signs of swerving. Diane drives as if she is unaware that she is traveling on the wrong side of the road. A couple manages to swerve out of the way at the last moment. Diane doesn't even slow down. For nearly 2.7 kilometers, she drives at excessive speed as a wrong-way driver in the passing lane. Then, disaster strikes. On July 26, 2009, around 1:35 p.m., Diane Schuler's drive ended in tragedy. On the Taconic State Parkway, she drove her red minivan head-on into a Chevrolet Trailblazer. Inside the Trailblazer were 81-year-old Michael Bastardi, his 49-year-old son Guy, and their 74-year-old friend Daniel Longo. The impact is devastating. The Chevrolet is thrown to the side and crashes into another car. Diane's minivan rolls over, is catapulted across the median strip, and catches fire. Diane, her 2-year-old daughter Erin, and 2 of her 3 nieces die at the scene of the accident. The 3rd niece succumbs to her severe injuries shortly afterward in the hospital. None of the children were wearing seatbelts. Only Diane's 5-year-old son Brian survives, seriously injured. He is thrown from the car in the accident and suffers multiple broken bones. The 3 men from the other vehicle also die. It is one of the worst traffic accidents in the history of Westchester County, surpassed only by a bus crash in 1934. 2 men who witnessed the accident pull Diane from the burning vehicle. On the driver's side, they find a broken bottle of Absolute vodka. News of the accident spreads quickly, and the families are devastated. Warren and Jackie Hentz, the parents of the 3 girls who were killed, lose their entire family that day. In his eulogy, Warren struggles to find words to express the loss of his daughters. Daniel Schuler is also in shock. He loses his wife and daughter, and for a long time it remains unclear whether his son has survived. The Bastardi family loses a father, a son, and a close friend. They had been on their way to a family gathering that day. But how could a mother who was considered caring and responsible do such a thing? Immediately after the tragedy, a thorough investigation begins. The police investigate the scene of the accident, secure the vehicle, and order an autopsy for Diana. The toxicology report is soon available, and it reveals shocking results. Diana Schuler had a blood alcohol level of 1.9. She must have consumed large amounts of alcohol shortly before the accident. In addition, a high level of THC is found in her blood. A medical examiner, who later speaks publicly about the case, explains that such a high THC level can only be explained by active consumption shortly before the accident. A medical cause for the loss of control is ruled out. Neither a stroke, a thrombosis, nor any other physical causes can be identified in her. Only the aforementioned half-full bottle of vodka is found in the car. Diana's friends, relatives, and the media are all asking the same question. Why? How does this behavior fit with the image everyone had of Diana? Daniel Schuler questions the autopsy. He requests a second toxicological examination, hoping that a mistake was made. He is convinced that Diana would never have driven while intoxicated, especially not with 5 children in the car. Even her sister-in-law, Jackie, expresses doubts. But the second report confirms all the findings. For many, the case is now closed, but not for Daniel Schuler. He does not believe that Diana had a secret drinking problem or that she caused the accident intentionally. He makes speculations, hires a private investigator, and speaks openly about his doubts in interviews. He also describes his perspective in the HBO documentary, There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane. And indeed, his theory is gradually gaining more and more traction. Despite the clear toxicological findings, the exact cause of Diane's behavior remains unclear. Her friends describe her as a cheerful woman who had everything under control. Perhaps the most tragic theory surrounding the accident is that Diane wanted to die and deliberately intended to take her children and nieces with her. But for many relatives, this picture does not fit the woman they knew. Other clues point to an exceptional medical or psychological situation. Her son Brian later testified in the hospital that Mommy's head hurt and she could no longer see properly. Weeks before the accident, Diane reportedly complained of pain in her jaw. Colleagues report that she often touched her lower jaw. It's possible the pain was so severe that she drank the vodka after being unable to get painkillers at the gas station. The autopsy revealed no physical illness. Diane may have had a severe migraine or some kind of medical emergency that could not be determined later. There are also indications of regular marijuana use, apparently to help her sleep better. This is reported by a colleague of hers. Her close relatives, however, knew nothing about it. Exactly what the story is behind Diane's found cell phone could no longer be determined. Nor could the question of why her brother did not immediately alert the police after receiving the alarming call from his daughter. In memory of their 3 deceased daughters, Jackie and Warren founded the Hentz Family Foundation. It is particularly dedicated to empowering young girls and boosting their self-esteem. In October 2009, a new law goes into effect in New York, Leandra's Law. It classifies driving under the influence of alcohol with children in the vehicle as a crime. The media picks up on the case repeatedly, and even an episode of the series Law and Order is based on the accident. Jackie Hentz writes a book about her grief. In 2011, she becomes a mother to another daughter. Brian Schuler, the sole survivor of the accident, recovers physically. He often talks with his father about what he went through, about his little sister, his cousins, and about his mother, Diane. And that brings us to the end of today's video. A truly shocking accident. What do you think about this case? How do you explain Diane's behavior? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. By doing so, you're also supporting this channel. Other than that, there isn't much more to say. I hope you're having a nice morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever time you're watching this, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye everyone.